Every superhero has their tools that they can't live without. Batman has his Batarang, Wonder Woman her lasso of truth, Thor his hammer. Today, I'm gonna walk you through the 5 tools that I think every RVer should have so you can be the hero the next time something goes wrong in your RV. These are gonna be the bare bones essentials so we can devote as little space to tools and as much space to fun as we possibly can. My name is Emily. I'm a certified mobile RV repair tech based in Las Vegas, and this is RV Repairwoman. Think of me today as your own personal Alfred, but like, much cuter and younger. I'm here giving you the tools that you need and quietly supporting you from the sidelines. You got this. Starting with tool number 1. You may not have spidey senses that tingle every time something goes wrong in your RV, but with a multimeter, it can feel like you have supernatural abilities. From being able to test if your batteries have died, to testing a fuse, to figuring out why that damn light won't turn on, a multimeter is a must-have in my book. I know a lot of people get intimidated by multimeters because it gives them PTSD flashbacks to that mean science teacher from high school. First of all, don't let that mean science teacher get you down. Instead, decide to use it as your origin story for how you rose to greatness. Secondly, I am not your old curmudgeon of a science teacher. I am your friendly neighborhood RV repair tech. And I have a whole video out walking you through how to use your multimeter for beginners, specifically in RVs. So I highly recommend you check that out. If you can turn a doorknob and hold 2 pencils, then you can use a multimeter. When it comes to getting your first multimeter, I'm of 2 camps. Sometimes I tell people to just go to Harbor Freight, get the cheapest, simplest meter that you can find, just to get you over that hump of not having touched one in forever. But on the other hand, I will say the only time that I have been majorly shocked in my life was due to a cheap multimeter. I was working on something with a bunch of people, so I wanted to double check that there wasn't power going to it before I touched it. Tested it with the meter said there was no power going to there, so I went and touched it. It shocked the crap out of me and sparked in my face. And I was on a ladder that I almost fell off of because I was surprised. I did not feel like Wonder Woman that day. It turns out that the wires inside of the probes on the cheapo meter that I was using had broken, which is why they weren't getting any voltage reading. I don't tell that story to scare people off, merely to say that while the $10 Harbor Freight meter can do 80 to 90% of what you need to test around your RV, I still feel like a decent meter is a worthwhile investment. Day to day, I use my Klein CL800. It's a little over $100 and it's one of my most used tools. If this guy can save you from calling a tech even once, then you've made back the money that you've spent on it. Tool number 2, Batman has to wear a utility belt to hold all of the tools that he needs, but what if there was just one tool that could do almost everything that you needed around your RV? For me, that tool is the Klein 11-in-1 screwdriver. But I didn't always feel that way. When I first got the required tool list to go to the NRVTA, which is the RV school that I'm certified through, it felt like I was going to Hogwarts. Instead of walking down the streets of Diagon Alley with my bearded half giant, I was going down the aisles of Harbor Freight with my 6'3" bald boyfriend. Close enough. I was so excited about every tool I threw in the cart. A new socket set, a manometer, a brand new wire crimper. And then I came across one tool on the list that completely flummoxed me. And that was this 11-in-1 screwdriver. At the time, I thought that this was the silliest tool to ask a professional to purchase. I hated multi-tools, and I still hate most of them. I was of the opinion that a tool should do one thing and do it really well. I would rather have 100 tools that did one job perfectly than one tool that did 100 jobs shoddily. But the dang 11-in-1 was required, so I hit send to cart on the Amazon page. When it arrived, I threw it in my bag and assumed it would be the first tool that I replaced once I got my business up and running. And now I can't imagine leaving home without it. This thing is awesome. The tools in it are intuitively arranged, so I'm rarely searching aimlessly to find the tool that I want. It takes me less time to switch out between tools than it would take for me to rummage around in my bag to get a new one. And the bits are all held in really well, so they're not falling out, rolling under the couch, never to be seen again. I've had other screwdrivers like this with the multiple heads that I have hated. I was constantly losing the heads. They never stayed in place, and then when I went to use them, the dang heads were always falling off. This thing is different. It just works. I absolutely love this thing. I think it's a must-have tool for all RVers. It barely takes up any space in your RV, and it does the job of 11 different tools. And pro tip, it has a Robertson bit on it, which is a fancy type of square bit that is used all over RVs. Take another look at some of the screws around your RV. They may look like standard Phillips bits, but if you look closer, you'll see that there's a square bit hiding in the middle of it. If you use a Robertson bit, you're much less likely to strip screws when you're pulling them out. You got this. Tool number 3. Sometimes when I'm working around RVs, I wish that I had the powers of Ant-Man and could shrink down to 1/100th my normal size, just to be able to get to some of these itty bitty components. That's where the needle nose pliers come in. These bad boys allow you to get to all of those tiny finicky parts without having superhuman powers. Another huge bonus to having rubber handled needle nose pliers is they can drastically reduce your chance of getting shocked when working on electrical projects in your RV. I've talked about this in a couple other videos, but I used to run obstacle course races. Stick with me, this is relevant. That was my bread and butter weekend hobby. But there is one brand of race that I will never run again. It was called Tough Mudder, and its claim to fame was an obstacle called electroshock therapy. It was literally this field of dangling wires that was like clicking with 10,000 volts of electricity going through it. When I first walked up to this thing, I was so nervous that my not yet boyfriend at the time was like,
"Do you want me to go through first to show you it's not that bad?"
So he went off to show me how easy it was, and 3 steps in, took a wire to the back of the head, blacked out, and fell face first in the mud. And then once he crawled out, he had the gall to turn around and look at me and go,
"See, not that bad."
I own a house with and am madly in love with this man. I do not know how I did not murder him that day. When it was my turn to go through, it went basically the same as him, except I was screaming the whole time. When I finally got to the end and dragged myself out, I looked at this man that I wanted to murder and declared that I was never doing that again. All of this to say that I really do not like getting shocked. So now that I work with electricity on the reg, I am pretty damn careful. Even when I know that there is no power going to something, I'll still use my insulated needle nose pliers just so there's as little interaction between electrical components and my meat fingers as humanly possible. It just drastically reduces the interactions that my hands have with live power. And you best believe that if for some godforsaken reason I somehow end up having to go through that obstacle again, I'm gonna be out there with my needle nose pliers, just moving each of those wires out of the way. Tool number 4, every superhero needs a getaway vehicle. Batman has his Batmobile, you have your RV. But what if the Batmobile couldn't move because its jacks were stuck down or its slides were pushed out? I recommend that every RVer drive around with a drill and a set of sockets so you're never stuck with your proverbial pants around your ankles. On top of being incredibly versatile for random jobs around your RV, your drill can actually hold the secret to getting your jacks up, your slides in, and you back out on the road. Almost every kind of slide or jack has a manual override on it that you can use using just a drill and the right size socket. Are your slides or jacks hydraulic? Pop this cap off of your hydraulic motor, throw a 1/2-inch socket on there, and boom, you can manually override your entire hydraulic system. Electric jacks not coming up? Take off this cap, throw in a 3/8 drive extender, and you're ready to go. Electric slides stuck out? Well, as long as your slide is a through frame slide, meaning it doesn't have these kind of squiggly tracks on the side, then you can locate the motor for the slide somewhere under the RV, throw a 3/4-inch socket on that puppy, and you should have your slide in no time. One thing you should really know when you're doing these manual overrides is they really want to be done with a drill and not with an impact driver. Inside your slide motor or your hydraulic pump are some little plastic gears that really don't want to take the impact that the impact driver is gonna impart. And if you start stripping gears, you could really end up stuck up a creek without a paddle. I love impact drivers. I use them all the time. This is really the place for a drill. And tool number 5, superheroes don't just identify problems, they solve them, which is where the joys of a good pair of wire strippers and crimpers come in. In another video, I referenced that if you're a professional, I recommend getting separate crimpers and strippers. Refer back to my hatred of multi-tools. But if you're just a day-to-day RVer, getting yourself this dual stripper crimper from Harbor Freight is going to fulfill almost all of your needs. I'm going to show you right now the source of a ton of electrical problems in RVs and how to solve it in seconds with just this one tool. It's these right here. They're called butt connectors, and they're what allow us to easily crimp 2 wires together. You can get them at almost any auto supply store. If these crimps weren't put down tight enough, maybe by an RV manufacturer that's trying to crank out hundreds of these a day, the wires can fall out. And it happens all the time in RVs. If you find a wire that has fallen out of a butt connector, just cut off the part that is still attached, strip both wires, and then use the crimper to attach a new butt connector to each side. You'll see that the crimpers have 3 different colors on these 3 different crimper settings. Those colored dots coordinate with the color of the butt connector. Red is for small wires, blue for medium wires, and yellow for larger wires. Pop the connector in, squeeze, and you're good to go. I drive around with a ton of these bad boys on my truck because wires fall out of them all of the time. Now that you've got all the tools you need, you can head over to rvrepairwoman.com/guide, where you can get my free guide to RV maintenance that's going to walk you through how to use these tools to save a bunch of money in your RV. Or you can get that information in video form right here. This has been RV Repair Woman. You got this.